Hello and welcome to Rain Francis Art. My name is Rain. Today I'm going to be drawing my dog Fluffy. She was a dog that I had as a child. It's been quite a long time since she passed away, but lately I've been thinking about her and I decided that I wanted to immortalize her with charcoals. So let's begin. If you'd like to follow along with this drawing, these are the supplies that you'll need. You're going to need some black art paper. I have the brand Arteza, and this is 9.5 by 12 inch black paper, and it's 90 pound. And you're also going to need some charcoal pencils. I have my charcoal pencils here. I have white charcoal, and I have 4 black charcoal, HB, 2B, 4B, and 6B. I'm not sure which ones I'm going to use, but I will definitely put all that in the description below after. I also have these chalk pencils, white chalk pencils. I like these for midtones. They're a little annoying because they dull very quickly. That's why I have 4 ready to go. And for blending, I have just a whole bunch of blending tools here. This is all for black charcoal. I've got some foam blenders, some blending stumps, tortillon blenders. Got some old dollar store paint brushes. I also have some cotton swabs. And I've got my set of blending tools for my white charcoal. There's tortillon blenders and blending stumps here. I'm not sure at this point what I'm going to use, but again, I will put that in the description below. I also just have a piece of wax paper that I can rest my hand on when I'm putting in the shading and the highlighting, just so that I don't get charcoal all over the place and I don't smudge my drawing. Now I have already transferred my stencil onto my canvas. It's a very simple sketch here. I've put a link in the description below if you'd like to download the PDF version and print it out. I also have a video, and I'll put that in the links in the description below too, of how to transfer your image onto your canvas. So let's begin. I'm going to draw my late dog Fluffy. So I'm going to begin with her eyes. She had very distinctive eyes, and I'm going to start with my chalk pencil. Now her pupil is black in there, so I'm just going to go around her, is it her iris? And I'm going to fill that in because her eyes were quite dark. I don't know if you can see that. I have to get up once in a while and look because my lights are just so bright that I can't always see what I'm doing here. Actually, I'm going to use my white charcoal for this. Just going to fill in around her pupil. Because her pupil is black, even if I got some white in there, it's no big deal because I could grab my 6B black charcoal and fill it in after, but I'm going to do this just to keep that pupil uncolored. All right. Now, I usually start with the lightest colors, so I'm going to start with my white, and I'm just going to draw out a few sections where I want the white to be the whitest, I suppose, because I'm going to use the chalk, white chalk, for midtones, like I said. So I'm just giving myself a little bit of a guideline here. I'm looking at her photo. It's a really old photo. I have not uploaded it digitally because it's not my photo. It was given to me by a family member, so I don't have their permission to upload it, unfortunately. But that's all right. She was an English sheepdog, and if you look that up, I'm sure you can figure out what she looked like because they're all very similar. So I'm using my white charcoal. I just switched to my little stubby one because it's a little less sharp. So I'm just going to fill all of that in with the white charcoal. And I have my dogs in here with me. I have my hound dog Jack and my Rottweiler Raven. So you might hear some snoring in the background. They're both sleeping. It's a very rainy, chilly November morning. We've got the heat on, so everybody's nice and cozy. When you're using any kind of pencil, always turn it once in a while so you don't wear it all down on one side. I personally am very frugal when it comes to my art supplies, and as you can see, I use them until I can't use them anymore. So I turn my pencil quite often, and that means I don't have to sharpen as much. So I'm just filling in all of those areas that I outlined with the white charcoal. Now in the stencil there was a little line right here that went up her nose. I'm actually going to just do a little kind of circle around it, and I'm not going to fill that in with the white because I don't want to lose that line and forget about it. I can always put more white in later when I'm finishing up. I am such a dog person. I just adore them. I've always had dogs in my life, always. Can't imagine life without them. All right, so now I'm going to do this again. I'm going to take I'll take the bigger one because it's easier to hold. I'm going to draw out a few areas as guidelines because around her eyes, they're very, very dark. I'm just going to do this to give me a guideline and to remember that her eyes are very dark. And we've got a few mid-tones here. And under her snout as well. This area here, got mid-tones. So I'm going to start with my chalk pencil. Now you could always, if you don't have chalk, you could use your white charcoal pencil, but you want to make sure that this color is going to be much whiter than the mid-tone color, so you'll have to kind of play around with that a little bit. I always use these chalk pencils and I always say I can't stand using them. I can't stand using them. They don't apply very well, but I keep using them. Go figure. I might switch to my white charcoal actually. I am, once and for all, there we go. I'm putting my foot down and I'm not using those chalk pencils anymore. But what I need to do is differentiate. So I'm going to put kind of a darker border around where I want to keep very white. And I might go ahead and just put in a second layer right away. I have to figure out how to get my midtones without the chalk. So I may be experimenting with a few things today. And it may look like I'm filling in the charcoal with straight lines, but I'm actually doing little circles. I find that when I do little circles, it blends much better. If if I want a straight line, I will draw a straight line because that's what it's going to look like after I blend it. White charcoal is a little finicky to blend. Okay, I think we can definitely make sure that we'll keep these areas very white now that we have the second layer of charcoal on there. Now I'm just going to lightly fill in those mid-tone areas. See, I'm not applying too much pressure. So that should work for my mid-tones. I live in a very rural area of Canada. I live in the province of New Brunswick, and weekends, especially at this time of year, there are a lot of weekenders that come up, and there's a lot of, you know, those ATVs, or what are they called, quads. They make so much noise. I'm very quiet. I'm a quiet person, and I don't like hearing those quads vroom vroom constantly, you know. So usually I spend my weekends inside with my art. It gives me a good chance to relax and not have to be bothered by those quads. I'm adding a little more white here just to make sure it doesn't get lost. Okay, I'm just looking again, and there are areas where she's got, I'm just going to do this, okay? Because this whole area is like a mid-tone, mid-tone, it's her back. So I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm very lightly applying this white charcoal. All right. I think she's got a little bit over here too of that mid-tone. And a little bit going down here. She was such a beautiful dog. I love all that, the hair. You know, she had that hair, long fur. I'm just giving myself a few more references because this is going to be a darker mid-tone here. And I'm just seeing that she has a little bit of a stripe down here of that mid-tone, the lighter mid-tone. Right. I'm starting to lose my voice. All right, let's see. We'll probably add a little bit more later, but for now I'm going to take my HB and I'm going to fill in this whole area here with HB. Now I know that my paper is black, but I find it makes a big difference when you use your black pencils. It gives it a little bit more depth rather than just sort of leaving it all black. And I'm just filling everything in here that I had outlined for that darker mid-tone. Now for those of you who don't know, I talk about shades and highlights and mid-tones. The darkest area of your drawing is where you have your shading. And on the gray scale, we've got black, white, and gray. You know, as opposed to the color wheel, the color scale, we just have a gray scale going on here. And the midtones are everything in between your brightest white and your darkest black. So you could have, I think there are officially, can't remember, eight midtones. You know, from light gray, medium gray, dark gray, lighter black, la la la, that type of thing, you know. So you can choose as many midtones as you want to add to your drawing. I don't usually plan it out ahead of time, but usually I use anywhere from 4 to 6. And I'm just kind of winging it here. Excuse me. I'm going to take my white again because there's a little bit of that lighter mid-tone around her eye here. This pencil is nearly shot. I always say if I can fit it into the sharpener, I can still use it, but it doesn't fit into my sharpener anymore. I mean, I could use a little sharpener like this and, you know, keep it going for another little while, which is probably what I will do. All right, I'm going to start doing a little bit of blending. I'm going to start with using a cotton swab because the cotton swab works really well with the dark charcoal. Not so much with the white charcoal, though. That I'll have to use a blending stump for. The harder the pencil, the more difficult it is to use a cotton swab for blending. I'm saying this as I just realized I was using the HB, which stands for hard black. So this I'm going to have to use blending stumps for these. But I will start with the white and use my large blending stump. Just to start with the lightest whites first. And I'm not pressing too hard. I don't want to press too hard because I don't want to ruin my paper. If you press too hard when you're blending using a blending stump or any kind of tool for blending, you won't be able to add more layers very easily. I'm going to be probably adding some more detail to this, and then I'll do a final blending at the end. So it's not going to be completely blended right now, but I like to blend as I go, just so that I can see the drawing come alive, and it motivates me to keep going and adding more details, and makes me happy. I like to see my drawings come to life, especially, you know, when it's personal. Like my dog Fluffy, I had her when I was a kid. She died when I was a teenager, and she died in my arms, actually. I really miss her. She was so sweet. Okay, I'm gonna... Once in a while you have to wipe off your blending stumps. Raven, that's my Rottweiler shaking up. You gonna take it easy, Raven? When she shakes, she really shakes. She enjoys her shake. Now I'm blending the mid-tone here. I got sidetracked with Raven. What I was saying is, once in a while you have to wipe off your blending stump or else it gets filled with pigment, charcoal, and it won't blend very well. And I'm using a circular motion with the blending stump. I'm having a hard time with this one. There we go, that side's better. And I'm blending over those white areas too, so that they're not just, you know, big circles of white in there. Okay, continuing over. I'm not going to do the eyes with the big blending stump. I'm going to take out the little tortillon blender for that because it's detail and I don't want to lose my shapes in there. I can go around the eye, but I'm not going to play with those little tiny areas with the big blending stump. That's why the tortillon blenders come in handy. They're great for detail. I think English sheepdogs are just beautiful. But I remember poor Fluffy, in the summer she got so hot because as a kid we did not have air conditioning at my parents' house, and she really got hot, so she got shaved every summer. She went from looking like a huge dog to this tiny little scrawny thing because she was basically all hair. Okay, I'm liking how that looks so far. I'm going to start adding more color before I start blending in the eyes. And when I say color, I mean, you know, charcoal, black and white charcoal. Okay, so now I'm going to take my 4B, which is a darker. Where's my 4B? There we go. Because there are darker midtones. Like I think I've got the white. I will be using 6B for my black, and I'm using white, but not as, you know, a darker shade of white with the HB and then the 4B. So I'm going to be using 3 midtones here. Now, I just have to figure out where these are. And here, let's see, just in between this and this, there's a little bit of this midtone here, using for the 4B. I didn't even, that was a terrible bit of grammar there, Rain. I'm using for the 4B. What on earth does that mean? I guess you got my point, though. Sometimes I'm concentrating so hard on what I'm doing that I don't speak good. I don't speak well. Just going around her eye. I'm erasing my line there. Just around her eye, it's all 4B. It's dark. And this eye too. Just going to erase my white line here. And you know, like I said, don't forget to turn your pencil once in a while so you don't have to wear it down on all on one side. You don't have to sharpen it again, that is. Gonna try to get rid of some of that circle, but not all of it yet. All right, let me take a look at her nose. Now under here, she's got a little dark, but she also has a little light area, but not a white area, just a little light area here and around her nose too. I'm starting to feel a little sentimental about her. All right. She has a very dark nostril. Under her nostril, though, she's got a few little white spots. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to try something here. I'm just going to outline those areas that I want to stay white. And this, her nostrils here, they're very dark, but they're not as dark as her nose. So I'm going to take my 2B and I'm going to add a little 2B to the white to see if I can get that darker color, but not as dark as her nose, because her nose we're going to use the 6B. I think that might work. I'm going to grab the 6B right away and just fill in her nose right away. And I want to erase these lines here. Because I don't want to see lines around her nostrils or, you know, that's not how we look in real life. So, you know, if you don't have all of the supplies that I have, I encourage you to experiment and mix charcoal pencils, mix white, mix black, try 2B, 4B, 6B, HB, all the Bs. Try them out and see what you can get. I think that's going to work. So I'm looking at her tongue now, and under her nose still, there's still a little bit of white here. Her tongue starts, I would say, about here. Okay? That's where her tongue starts. And she's got a little mid-tone here. And mid-tone here. But this mid-tone here on her actual tongue, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take my 2B and I'm going to add a little bit of black to that because it's not as light as this area on top here. It's just a little darker. At the same time, I'm erasing those guideline marks that I put in. And her tongue actually is this mid-tone here, but not white. Doesn't she look happy? And for her tongue, I don't mind having the outline. All right. I'm still going to use my white charcoal, and I'm going to put in this shade of mid-tone. As I'm looking at my reference photo, you know, as I fill in the details and things like that, I can see where I'm adding more mid-tone. Okay, why don't I do a little bit of 6B, my darkest. Now, down here it's just all black, very, very dark black. So I'm just going to fill in the entire area with this 6B. And I'm turning my pencil once in a while. I'm not going for like this big realistic painting or drawing. I'm doing kind of what they call posterized, where you just see kind of a blurry image, but you can make out what the image is for sure. It's just not a realistic piece. I'm not going for realism. I would like it to look like fluffy, but I don't need to have it completely in detail. Do you know what I mean by that? I'm using the side of my pencil here. I think it's easier for larger areas. I used to have stick charcoal, but I don't know what I did with it. That would have been good for this. I'm kind of stopping around this area here. I'm not going to go further down. All right, there are some very, very dark areas. I'm going to put those in right away. And as I go, I'm noticing midtones that I need to put in. All right, she's very dark down here. I already filled in her nose. She's got that little kind of dark area here. And I'm going to, right away, I'm going to put in some white around there, because I left that on purpose like that so I wouldn't forget that dark mark. There we go. And I've still got the 6B. I'm going to work on her eyes after. Just want to darken this up here. And like I said, at the same time I'm erasing my outline. Let's see. Don't forget to turn your pencil once in a while. I'm reminding myself at the same time. And on this side, it's all quite black. Just going to erase my outline again here with the 6B. And just bring that dark color down to where I'm stopping, about here. Okay. Now, I've done her nose. On the side of her nose, she actually has more light color here. It's all light, actually, around her nose. And I'm going to add a little white here. I've got her tongue. Under her tongue, there's a little spot here that's quite white, that's quite light, but not as light as her tongue. So while I'm here, I'm going to grab that 2B pencil again and fill that in so that there's a differentiation between the shade of her tongue and underneath. There we go. And around her tongue here, it's all dark black, very black. And on this side as well. Okay, and a little black here. And under here. And under here, it's the same thing as this. I'm putting in some of that white charcoal. But I'm taking my 2B and adding some of that too, so that it's not the same shade as the side here. Alright, I think I have filled in pretty much everything. There's a little spot here too, same thing. Just taking that 2B, oops, and filling that in like that. So it's a little different. Alright, I'm going to start doing some shading. Now let me just see how this goes with the Q-tip. Yeah, I'm not happy with the Q-tip. I think what I'm going to do is just use blending stumps. So I'm going to grab a blending stump from my bin of, you know, dark, what I only use for dark, and I'm going to start blending everywhere that I have a dark area. What I'm blending right now is the HB area, which is the lightest black that I have, so I'm starting with that. And I'll work my way down. When I was in high school, I had a little job delivering newspapers. I guess when newspapers were still around to be delivered. And I had quite a big route, and Fluffy always came with me. She was always there with me when I was delivering my papers. I would leave at 4:30 in the morning to go deliver my papers, and she was right by my side. I always considered her my dog. She was our family dog, but I considered her my dog because I was the one who was in charge of taking care of her and feeding her. And I walked her. And I spent time with her, whereas other siblings didn't really spend time with her. I was always with her. I think I spent a lot of time with her because, and this is awful to say this, but this is the truth. She was kept in the basement, and my heart breaks every time I think about that. But that's where they kept her, and that's why I spent so much time in the basement. She was alone a lot. And no animal should be left alone. No pet should be left alone. I think we had her for 8 years. I mean, she was allowed up into the living room once in a while, and she ate upstairs, but for the most part, they just left her down there, and I just, oh God, I'm getting emotional thinking about it. But like I said, I spent as much time with her as I could. And you know, sometimes if I didn't walk her, nobody else did. It was a big responsibility for an 8-year-old, you know. That's when we got her, when I was 8 years old. But I learned back then that, you know, unfortunately, if I didn't take care of her, nobody else would. So a lot of lessons I learned as a kid. But I have such a love for dogs, you know. All right, I think I haven't done her nose. Oh, I've got tears in my eyes. Ah. Okay, so her nose is blended. There was this little area down here. And I think I've got all the, oh wait, no, this area down here. Well, inside her tongue. And then under her tongue. And down here. I'm using my, the black tools because I call them the black tools, the ones I use for black charcoal, because there is some black charcoal with the white there. Okay, let me wipe that off. I'm going to use my white blending stump that I use for white, and I'm going to go over, I did put a second layer of white here, so I'm going to go over and blend that. I'll blend the white and black together after, but for now I just want to get it blended, generally speaking. So anywhere that I applied white, I will be blending right now. One time we went on a family camping trip, and they didn't want to bring her with us, so they put her in a shelter for a week while we were away. And my parents got a phone call just as we were going to leave for the camping trip. Fluffy had climbed the 10-foot gate and ran away. She didn't want to be left there. Didn't want to be left behind. And I remember I went with my father to that shelter, and they couldn't find her. And they were about to give up, and I didn't want to give up. And I just went up and down. It was kind of on in a country area, country road. I went up and down that road, calling her name. Finally, she came out. She had been hiding in a bush on the side of the road, and she had thistles all over her. Her paws had been cut from the fence. They brought her right back, and they put her in a cage for a week. It broke my heart. All right. But she came to me when I called her. When other people called her, she didn't come. But when she did come to me. She was a very special, sweet dog. Okay, so I've got my tortillon blender. Tortillon means twist, and it's all twisted paper. I'm going to go in and start blending her eyes. I still have to add things to her eyes and more detail to her fur. But I'm blending in her eyes right now. And I still have those little black pupils there. But I want to add a little bit more shading. So I'm going to take my 2B. because her eyes are very, very dark. So I'm going to fill in pretty much her entire eye, except for the iris and the pupil. And I'll do the same thing here. Just want to keep the shape of her eye. Just looking at my reference photo here. All right, that looks cute. What a cutie. Blending that in a little. There we go. And I think I'm going to take my 6B and I'm going to just make that pupil a little darker so it's more obvious. There we go. And I think I still need to blend her nose with the white. Yeah. There we go. I think she's looking pretty good. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start blending the white into every other area. So instead of, you know, it looks like we've got like a like that. You have to use the sound effects. So I'm just going to blend all of that so that you can't see the lines. So they're all blended in together. And at the same time, I'm going in and I'm blending in that white again. I'm not going to press too hard because I may want to add another layer of white. I'm not sure. Or I may just use pencil strokes as hair, fur. So I'm just going to go ahead and do all that and chat away. I'll do all this area too. Anywhere that I feel needs to be more blended, that's what I'm doing. And whatever, if you're following this too, you do it the way you want. If you like the way it looks, then you leave it that way. There was a time when Fluffy got skunked. Poor her. Oh my goodness. She was a little too curious in the backyard and she got sprayed by a skunk. I insisted that we try using tomato juice. Bathe her in tomato juice. Because I had heard that that was supposed to work. The vet said to try it. So they reluctantly bought a bunch of tomato juice, and I bathed her in tomato juice, and it didn't really work. But nothing works, to be honest with you. There's even a product called Skunk Out. It takes a long time for that smell to get out of their skin and out of their hair, even if you could bathe them every day with those products, and they're still going to have that little bit of skunky smell to them. I had another dog, her name was Marlene. She passed away about a year ago. She was a beautiful, sweet, husky shepherd mix. She got skunked about a week before I adopted her, and boy was she a stinkeroonie. I bought this product called Skunk Out, and it's really just a band-aid, you know. It has to work through their skin and their fur for it to come out. But man, I remember that smell. So because the tomato juice didn't work right away, my parents decided to just shave her. So she got shaved. she still kind of had that skunk smell to her. But I think that being skunked is, you know, something that can happen to anybody. We have a lot of skunks here, and you could be walking in the woods and just bump into one and they can go just pee all over you. Actually, I think it's, I'm not going to get graphic here, but I think it's from their anal sacs, which is kind of gross, but that's their defense, right? This is a nice soft drawing. I always say painting. Just gonna go in, make sure that tongue is done under here, everywhere that needs blending. All right, I think I'm good with this blending for now. All right, I'm gonna add a little bit of detail. I want her eyes to be a little whiter, so I'm going to gently add a little more white to her eyes. Just like that, and I'm not necessarily going to blend. But I am going to take my 6B and make sure that the pupil is dark. There we go. Okay. Now for a little bit of detail. HB. I'm going to put in some very faint fur. I don't want to put too much in because this area is very, very white on her, but I want to show a little bit of detail. I'm going to come in and do more, but that's just to begin with. You all right, Raven? Okay, and down here too. Not long, long hair, you know? Those sheepdogs with their really nice, long, long hair. Beautiful coats. All right. Remember, anywhere there's white, just adding some fur lines. All right, now I'm going to take my white and I'm going to add just some white highlighting here. Because I blended in the white charcoal, I can add some pencil marks and they will show. I'm going very light here though. I don't want too much down there. Putting in the, you know, the hair kind of brings her alive a little bit. And her hair was a little messy at times, so she's got a few pieces that are kind of coming out like that. Now I'm not sure if I'm going to keep these light lines here. I'm going to see how it looks after, and I might just blend them in instead of keeping them as pencil strokes. This is very therapeutic. Not just the art itself is very relaxing, but thinking back about Fluffy, and talking about her, and letting a few things off my chest at the same time. I'm a very sensitive person, and I just, when I see animals aren't treated well, it breaks my heart, you know. That's probably why I spoil my pets so much. They deserve it. Okay, now I'm going to go and do all of her fur here. I mentioned that she died in my arms. She was very sick at the end, and I don't remember how old she was. I know she was a shelter dog. I don't know how old she was when she passed away or how old she was when we got her, but I remember holding her as she died. And surprisingly, for a teenager, that was not a traumatic experience for me. It was my first experience of showing as much love as I could to my pet. All right, a little bit more detail. I've got my HB again, and I'm just going to put in a slight bit more detail here, just a slight bit. And here too, because I don't want it to be all just white strokes. She had white and gray and black fur. Now let me see. Well, I stepped back from my drawing there just for a moment. There are a few things I'm not crazy about. I don't like these spots here. She never had spots, so I'm just coloring those in with my 2B. And here too, these aren't there. That's fine. That's a lot better. And I think that her eyes are a little bit too bright. So I've got my HB. Oops. And I'm going to fill in a little bit of HB over the white because they're a little too bright there. Now that looks a lot better. And this is a little too bright here for me too. There is a highlight, but it shouldn't be that white. And I'm going to make her tongue just a little bit whiter here, just a little bit. I'm going to blend that in because I want it to stand out a little more. my blending stump here. There we go. There's my fluffy. Blend a little bit here. Just very, very randomly going over this just to blend anything that needs it. All right. Little piece there. I think I'm pretty happy with this. Well, there you go, Fluffy. There's my tribute to you, my little girl. Miss you. I have photos of all of my pets that I've had throughout the years, and this is one dog that is hard to forget. She was just such a sweetie, and she had a challenging life, and as a kid I tried my best to make life happy for her, so for that I'm very proud, and I know that she appreciated that. So I want to thank you all for watching. Please leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you followed along. Talk to me about your dogs. I can talk about dogs all day long. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you next time on Rain Francis Art. Bye.